As the Madam Director stood up and went to the door, she turned around and paused. "By the way, my name is Selena Salem. Because of the Alliance customs, I've never been able to tell you my name. But there's something special about you, and I want you to know it. I'm tired of feeling captive to the influence and power of the Alliance. Meeting you reminded me of the importance of justice and true love. Who knows? Maybe one day you could take me away from here?" Before Kevin could respond, Selena gave a soft sigh. "I have to hurry back to my room. If anyone found out that I slept here, we'd both be in a lot of trouble." Kevin didn't speak, he just nodded his head. After Selena left, Kevin could still smell her perfume on the pillow. He made up his mind to develop his strength so that he could take her and anyone else who wanted freedom away from the Alliance as soon as possible. But right now, neither of them was powerful enough to take that kind of step, not against such a formidable organization. After a few hours, Kevin arrived in New York City. The hospital was full of Williams family members. There were also a lot of influential politicians and members of the business world who were there to visit with Randall Williams, Kevin's grandfather. But everyone was still puzzled about how he'd suddenly fallen ill. As Kevin had found out through his exposure to herbal medicines, someone with his grandfather's level of development should be able to fight off many fatal diseases. It seems that he had probably been poisoned, not in a single dose, but over a long period of time. Over the course of the previous month, Randall had felt more and more tired as the level of poison had increased in his body. Looked like nobody could save him now. At first, Thomas had decided to keep the news of Randall's illness a secret. He was just too important a figure in New York, and if people knew that he'd been poisoned, it would have hurt the Williams family. Grandpa Williams lay in his hospital bed, very lethargic and looking gaunt. His skin was an odd bluish-purple color. All the senior members of the Williams family were at his bedside looking extremely somber. They would be lost without Randall. "Thomas, did you call Kevin?" Randall asked weakly. "Don't worry, Father. I've told him," Thomas replied hesitantly. But he didn't tell the poor sick man that although Kevin hadn't refused, he hadn't agreed either. "Good." Grandpa Williams nodded his head lightly. Even though Kevin had angered the entire family, he was still his grandson after all, and he still wanted to see him before he died. "I don't understand, Dad. Why did you call Kevin to come here? He's been banished from the family." Laura couldn't help wondering. Monty Aspinwall and Ethan Williams were standing by the window. They didn't understand why Grandpa had asked for Kevin to come to his bedside either. Was he going to make out a will? "Let's change the subject, Laura. Dad wants to see his grandson one last time. Who are we to stop him?" Thomas Williams frowned as he scolded his wife. As for Randall's poisoning, Thomas had a few suspicions, but since he still didn't have any evidence, he kept acting like he was clueless. As soon as Kevin entered the hospital, he attracted a lot of attention. But he wasn't in the mood to say hello to anyone. He stopped by the front desk to ask which room his grandfather was in, and then he walked up the stairs. Some of the people who were waiting in the lobby recognized him and started to whisper to each other. They believed all the lies that had been spread about what he'd done to the family and how he'd been ostracized. "What's he doing here?" they were all wondering. As soon as Kevin stepped out of the stairwell on the 4th floor, he was spotted by a lot of the senior members of the Williams family, who were standing around in the corridor. "Kevin, you have a lot of nerve coming here," one of his relatives sneered. "Get out of here right now," another one shouted. It certainly didn't look like a warm family reunion. They made a lot of noise insulting Kevin and telling him to get out. "Hey, Uncle Thomas called and asked me to come. I'm here to see my grandfather, not you." Kevin wasn't afraid to tell them off. When he walked into Grandpa's room, everyone's eyes were riveted on him. His Aunt Lori even tried to block him from entering the room. "You're not wanted here. Why don't you head back to your wife in Chicago?" "My mother's right. Get out of here right now, Kevin. My grandfather doesn't want to see you." Ethan snarled at him. Of course, Ethan didn't want Kevin to come into the room. Since Randall Williams didn't have a will, if Kevin came back, that meant dividing his estate up even more and less money for Ethan.
"What are you all shouting about? Get out of the way. I invited Kevin here myself."
Thomas walked over to them with a scowl on his face. "Are you kidding? Do you know how angry your father will get when he sees this?" Laura was furious with her husband. How could he bring Kevin back just when they were about to inherit the family's wealth? This was a disaster.
"I'm not kidding at all. In spite of everything, Kevin is a member of the Williams family. It's only right for him to see his grandfather one last time."
Thomas shut her down right away. Then he looked at his nephew and sighed heavily.
"Grandpa isn't awake right now. Have a seat at his bedside and wait for him to wake up again."
Kevin nodded his head in agreement and walked over to the bed.
"Step outside with me."
Thomas glared at Laura and the two of them left the room. Monty and Ethan clenched their fists as they stared at Kevin. But they both had different feelings towards him. Ethan's eyes were full of contempt while Monty's were full of resentment. Thomas and Laura walked all the way down the hall to the stairwell. "What are you calling me out here for?" Laura was in a very miserable mood. Thomas leaned in close to his wife and growled,
"Are you nuts?"
"What do you mean? I think you're crazy for inviting Kevin here right now." Her eyes were burning with anger.
"You're the crazy one," Thomas shouted. "Don't you realize Dad was poisoned?"
Laura was stunned when she heard this, and Thomas could see the panic in her eyes. "What do you mean? How could he have been poisoned when he's been shut away in seclusion for so many years?" Laura replied to him sternly.
"Maybe you haven't been in direct contact with Dad all these years, but you're the one who plans everything in the family."
Thomas hesitated for a moment before he got to the point.
"I had my suspicions, but when Kevin showed up in the room, you gave away some clues."
Laura didn't say anything to refute her husband's accusation. She just let Thomas keep talking.
"Tell me why you did it, Laura."
Thomas gritted his teeth and asked her.
"The Williams family has treated you well all these years. How could you do such a heartless thing?"
"Ha!" Laura suddenly laughed. "How can you ask me something like that? Okay, I'll tell you the truth. Why should I hide it anymore? Thomas, don't you ever feel like you're not a real man?" She paused for a moment to let that sink in. "You're obviously senior to Kevin, but you couldn't hold a candle to him. If I didn't find a way to drive him out of the family, there's no way you'd be able to take over after your father died. If I hadn't arranged for Hannah to disappear, how else could I keep Kevin from returning to our family? Don't you realize that Randall loves his grandson too much to not welcome him back into the fold?"
"So it's true then?"
Thomas looked deeply into Laura's eyes. He never thought that his wife could do so many things behind his back. "You figured it out. I found someone to poison Randall. Hannah never went home, and I'm the one who made sure of that. Now Monty hates Kevin, and Kevin never embezzled the family's funds. I found someone to forge the evidence to make it look like he'd been funneling money from the family's accounts." Laura sneered and concluded, "There you have it. It was me."
"But why did you do all that? Kevin's your own nephew."
Thomas's hands were shaking. "So what? I didn't have any choice. Ethan is a loser. All he knows is to sit around all day and waste his time. If I hadn't done this, Kevin would have ended up running the family's businesses, and we'd have lost everything." Laura didn't care about anything but her own future. "Once Dad is out of the way, you can take over the whole Williams family. Everything really belongs to us anyway, and now nobody can take it away." Laura told her husband the rest of her plan. "If you're worried that Kevin will be left penniless, you can just pay him off. I don't care how much, it'll be worth it. Every man has his price."
"But you—"
Thomas was so frustrated and disappointed in his wife that he didn't know what else to say. While this was happening, Kevin was sitting next to his grandfather's bed looking very sad. Even though the Williams family had kicked him out, how could he not be upset? He still loved his grandpa.
Hey, you bastard. Are you really going to wait around till Grandpa wakes up?
Ethan stood behind Kevin and looked down at him. He sneered.
I advise you to get out of here. If he wakes up and sees you, he'll only get angry.
Your father asked me to come here, and I'm staying. Don't tell me what to do, Kevin said brusquely.
He's very sick. I don't care if you are his grandson. I can't let you be the last thing he sees before he goes.
Ethan sneered menacingly.
So get out of here now.
Kevin ignored his cousin's order and continued to sit with Grandpa. Suddenly, his grandfather woke up. When he saw Kevin sitting there, his eyes lit up.
Grandpa, are you awake?
Ethan immediately asked him with a smile. Kevin sighed happily and called out, Grandpa.
Kevin, I am really glad you could come,
Randall said weakly. He'd been worried that Kevin wouldn't come back to see him. After all, he'd had his family do horrible things to Kevin's parents, Alan and Susan, and he'd even tortured Kevin's friend Mitchell. Just rest and get better, Grandpa. Kevin didn't know what else to say. A few minutes later, a nurse ran in and looked around the room. Are you all Mr. Williams' family members? Our team of specialists may have come up with a procedure to save him.
What would that be?
Thomas asked her urgently as he walked back into the room. Mr. Williams' blood is full of toxins. We can give him a transfusion to clear them out. Then the nurse added, but I want to emphasize that this procedure involves a lot of risk. If either Mr. Randall or the person who gives him the transfusion isn't in good enough health, they could die. The donor could even suffer health problems for the rest of their lives. All the family members in the room and out in the corridor heard this, and their faces turned grim. When they heard that the procedure could kill them or irreversibly weaken their health, they cringed. A lot of them were young and just starting to train their bodies with the help of the myriads. Grandpa Williams had already lived a long life. Why should they risk themselves just for him? They were all incredibly selfish. When Kevin saw everyone's reaction, he was disappointed in his relatives. How could they call themselves the protectors of the family? They owed everything to his grandfather's efforts over the years, and they'd be nothing without him. It looked like it would all be up to Kevin now. Everyone in the Williams family was gathered in the hospital to be with Randall Williams, who had been poisoned. They all expected him to die, but a nurse came in and told them that he could be saved by a very dangerous type of blood transfusion. Seeing that everyone else was keeping silent, Kevin boldly asked, "How soon can you arrange for me to donate my blood?" "We have a couple of steps to go through first, sir. Before we do anything, we need to see if your blood types match," the nurse explained carefully. "If you'll all come with me, I can test everyone to see whose blood is compatible." As she finished speaking, most of the Williams family members were relieved to find out that they needed to match Randall's blood type. A couple of hours later, the family was even more excited. Grandpa Williams' blood type was AB negative, the rarest there is. "Out of 243 people, only 3 of you match Mr. Williams." The nurse was surprised when she looked at the results of everyone's testing. The hospital had hoped to have a larger pool of possible donors, but they were lucky to find even 3 people. One of the Williamses asked hesitantly, "Nurse, which 3 people matched?" "Kevin, Thomas, and Ethan Williams," she answered quietly. As soon as they heard who was eligible, many of the family members felt a lot less anxious, and Grandpa Williams, who had just woken up again, started to smile happily. Even though he had lived a long life, it was normal for him to want to live a little longer. "The next step is to discuss who will donate the blood. Then the hospital's specialists will begin the preparations for the procedure." The nurse turned and walked out of the room with the test results. Everyone turned and locked their eyes on Kevin, his uncle, and his cousin. Thomas sighed and patted Ethan on the shoulder. "Son, please donate your blood to your grandfather." Kevin was no longer considered a true member of the Williams family. Nobody expected him to come back and visit his grandfather in the hospital, let alone provide a blood transfusion.
"Dad, what are you talking about?"
Ethan looked at his father in shock.
"I said you should give a blood transfusion to your grandfather,"
Thomas insisted as his heart sank. Just as Ethan was about to refuse, Grandpa Williams sat up a little in his bed and said, No. I want Kevin to provide the transfusion for me." All of a sudden, everyone looked at the old man. Some of them had doubts in their eyes, while others immediately understood how he'd come to this decision. It was to help protect Thomas and Ethan. "Kevin, if anything happens to you, your wife will support you for the rest of your life. But your Uncle Thomas has just taken over as head of the family, and everyone is depending on him," Grandpa Williams explained. "As Thomas's only son, your cousin Ethan is next in line. The blood transfusion is not just dangerous, but could also affect his health. He's too young to take that kind of risk." Although Grandpa Williams was very weak, his mind was still strong. Nobody there could argue with his reasoning. Kevin was tempted to laugh. Ethan wasn't just a weak little boy. And so what if he was the only child in Thomas's family? If a blood transfusion like this was dangerous for Ethan, wouldn't it be just as risky for Kevin? Why was the Williams family ready to risk Kevin's life but not Ethan's? "Grandpa, do you really want to put them ahead of me?" Kevin was feeling a little resentment about his unreasonable suggestion. "Grandfather, you're right. I think I should be protected from harm, but Kevin is nothing to us. It doesn't matter what happens to him." Ethan was grateful that Kevin would take this enormous risk and not him. The other family members who were in the room echoed Ethan's opinion. One of them commented, "Yes, Kevin's blood would be better off in Grandpa's body. It would be payment for all the years the family supported him." Another one remarked, "I wish I could offer my blood to Grandpa, but unfortunately I don't have the right type." You could hear them all chattering up and down the hall. Kevin started to sneer as he looked around the room at all of his relatives, who were literally demanding his blood. "Kevin!" Of course, Thomas understood what his father was asking them to do. If you'd asked him the day before, he probably would have agreed. But now that he knew what Laura had done, he felt incredibly guilty and was concerned about his nephew. But he had to keep what his wife had done a secret from the rest of the family. There was no turning back now. "Kevin, did you hear that? The decision is unanimous, but don't worry. After you donate your blood to your grandfather, we'll give you some money for your troubles. You get to do the right thing and also profit from it. Wouldn't that be a nice change?" Laura sneered as she spoke to Kevin. "Don't you think I can tell when I'm being manipulated?" Kevin grumbled. "I'll do the transfusion, but not because you're ordering me to. I've been cut off from the family for too long to care what you think. I'm doing this for my grandfather to repay his kindness to me over the years." The whole room suddenly quieted down, and no one said a word to refute what Kevin had said. "Thank you, Kevin. You don't know how happy this makes me. If the operation is successful and you and I are still alive, let's put the past behind us. You can even bring your parents back to the mansion," Grandpa Williams said excitedly. "Blood is thicker than water." Suddenly, Dalton Steele pushed his way through the crowd. The big burly man was seething in anger. "Dalton, what are you doing in New York?" Kevin asked in surprise. "Never mind that. Just come with me," Dalton snarled as he looked around at Kevin's relatives. None of the Williamses said a word. They avoided making any eye contact with Dalton. After all, they'd just seen how ferocious Dalton could be when he came to the family mansion. "Dalton, this is none of your business. What are you doing here?" Laura asked him angrily. She was afraid that if Kevin left, her son would have to offer to do the transfusion for Randall. She didn't care how dangerous Dalton was. She was trying to protect her son. "We haven't forgotten the trouble you caused for us, and we're not afraid of the Steele family." "Really? Not afraid of my family?" Dalton looked at Laura with disdain. "If you think you're strong enough, why don't you come to Chicago and see how that turns out for you?" "Calm down, Dalton." Kevin knew just how bad his friend's temper could be. "Are you nuts, Kevin? Have you already forgotten what they did to you?" Dalton roared loudly. "I know the Williams family can be vicious, but I can't forget their kindness to me when I was younger. They raised me until I was 20, Kevin explained to Dalton. But he also knew that nobody in the room was as good as his buddy. Then some of Kevin's relatives got over their fear and started to argue with Dalton. "You're screwing everything up. Kevin's willing to offer a blood transfusion to his grandfather. What gives you the right to stand in the way?" Another one yelled, "We just want him to donate some blood, not kill him." Then Ethan walked over to Dalton and sneered,
"Just because you're important in Chicago, that doesn't mean anything here. Nobody wants your opinion. Besides, if Kevin helps Grandpa, what's it to you? Even if the procedure injures him, he's unimportant. I'm sorry, but he can just go back to living off his in-laws." "Who the hell are you? Nobody talks to me like that."
Then Dalton grabbed Ethan by the neck and slapped him in the face. The whole room was silent, but nobody stepped forward to interfere.
"How dare you hit me?"
Ethan gnashed his teeth and glared at Dalton. He couldn't believe this was happening to him. He'd never been treated this way in his entire life, and now there were so many people watching. What would they think of him?
"I'm gonna beat the crap out of you," Dalton said viciously. "Mr. Steele, aren't you going too far?"
Thomas was on the verge of tears as he pleaded with Dalton. He felt helpless against this powerful man.
"Are you Kevin's uncle? So you're the head of the Williams family now," Dalton shouted ferociously. "Listen to me carefully. As long as I'm alive, none of you will ever bully Kevin again. Don't forget that you're the ones who drove him out of your family, and now you're actually forcing him to give you his blood."
"Hey, who put you in charge?" Laura snarled at him menacingly.
"If you want Kevin, you'll have to get him over my dead body," Dalton retorted.
"Come on, everyone," Laura roared loudly. "Let's show this guy what happens to someone who sticks his nose in our family's business." They all jumped up, ready to fight. Now that they'd been training with the Myriads, a lot of them had gotten a lot stronger and more skilled.
"We'll see about that."
Dalton punched the wall. His fists were like hammers, and the entire room shook from the force of the blows. The Williamses all gasped in terror. They could clearly see 2 large dents in the masonry wall. No one doubted that if Dalton had punched harder, he would have broken through into the next room.
"Who isn't afraid to die? Come and get me!"
Dalton shouted so loudly that everyone near him took a step back, cowering in fear. I've never seen Dalton like this. Kevin was surprised at his friend's power. What he didn't know is that ever since Dalton took the power pill, his training had improved by leaps and bounds. He was already impressive before, and now his strength was absolutely overwhelming. None of Kevin's relatives was able to respond. They stood there with their mouths hanging open, unable to move.
"Don't be so arrogant, Dalton. Do you really think we're all that weak?"
Grandpa Williams sneered. Even though he was very weak from the poison, Grandpa Williams found the strength to challenge Dalton.
"Just because the Steele family has a huge influence in Chicago, don't think that you can come to New York and meddle in our family's affairs. If you mess with us, it'll end badly for you." "From what I understand, the procedures could harm Thomas or Ethan. But did you give any thought to Kevin's feelings?" Dalton sneered. "Why don't you let your children and grandchildren learn how to lead by example? I can't believe you're making such a dumbass decision. If this is the best you can do, Kevin would be a lot better off without you." "You!"
Grandpa Williams was so angry his body was shaking. Thomas quickly went to the bed and patted him on the shoulder to try and calm him down. "Look what you've done now, Kevin. Did you bring your friend here just to upset your grandfather?" Laura scolded him. "Do you really want to make him angry? I think you should apologize to Grandpa right now."
"Why don't you apologize?" Dalton shouted back.
Suddenly they all heard someone burst into the room and shout, "How dare you make trouble for the family again?" Kevin was shocked to hear this, and he could feel the energy of the woman who was standing in the doorway. She stared expressionlessly at Kevin. It was Ariana Titus.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.